So several weeks ago, I proposed a contest between flat earthers and globers to see who could develop a rudimentary flight plan based on a search and rescue scenario with people missing at sea south of Australia. So prior to the contest beginning, I produced a number of pre-mission briefing videos containing additional information that you needed to complete the challenge. And this one was produced 4 days before the contest started, and it contained the performance specifications of the aircraft. And that was actually 80% of the information you needed to complete this challenge successfully. And what a lot of people did was develop an Excel spreadsheet that detailed the aircraft information, the climb performance, the cruise, and the descent. And that's what I've done here, and I'll go through that very quickly also later in the video. But one thing of note is that when the contest started, I received numerous correct entries within the first hour. They were all from Globers, and the flight plans were all based on the globe. And the most important thing of significance to me is that Flat Earth can't rescue, because there were no survivors on Flat Earth. So what happened, guys? Flat Earthers, you let these girls die. So really, what's the value of Flat Earth if you can't save people lost at sea? If we have to rely on the globe to rescue people lost at sea, then Flat Earth, in my opinion, has absolutely no value to society. So why did I propose this contest? Well, I'm always being told to research Flat Earth. Now, to me, research does not mean watching cartoons produced by people with no subject matter experience. For example, here is a typical video you see on Flat Earth channels, and it's a cartoon of a helicopter lifting off a ship, and it's being presented by a person who is not a helicopter pilot, and the person who produced the video is not a helicopter pilot either. So it's a cartoon. What am I going to learn from a cartoon, guys? You have to do a lot better than that, because I have 3,000 hours experience flying real helicopters. In fact, I'm flying the helicopter in this particular rescue. If we play the video a bit further, I'm flying the helicopter as we lift off at this point. And during this scene, we are conducting an exercise called M-planing, which means the terrain is unsuitable for landing the helicopter. So what I was doing was hovering about 18 inches above the ground, and by referencing objects ahead and to the left and right of me, I maintain the helicopter position as the crewman climbs on board. Now that's a particularly fun exercise, because as the weight comes on the helicopter, you get a lateral CG imbalance plus the additional weight. You have to make quick, rapid corrections to stop the weight of the crewman from disrupting the hover position. So with 3,000 hours of flying real helicopters, I don't want to see cartoons. It's not going to cut it for me. And a similar example is this video, which is again just a cartoon of an aircraft flying over a cartoon Earth with a demonstration of a cartoon gyro. Now, again, that's not good enough as far as I'm concerned. If we're going to do real research, why not buy a real artificial horizon, power it up, test it, take it apart, and see how it works? Real evidence, guys. Cartoons just don't cut it. That's a cartoon. That's a real helicopter. See the difference? So when it comes to researching Flat Earth, I decided to put Flat Earth to a real test. Now, search and rescues are something that I have a lot of personal experience with. I have done it in the real world, in real aircraft. So I understand how they are conducted, I understand how they are planned, and this contest was a very simplified search and rescue mission with data that was greatly simplified to make it easy enough for the layperson to produce a suitable flight plan. The scenario was 2 girls missing at sea, south of Australia. This contest required plotting a search area and producing a basic flight plan. The aircraft performance was provided 4 days in advance, and as I mentioned earlier, that was the majority of the information you needed to complete this challenge. The contest was open to any flat Earth map that works and any coordinate system that works. However, flat earthers were still unable to rescue the missing people. So prior to the contest, I stated that if you are planning to enter the contest based on the globe, you can use Google Earth. However, when I designed the contest, I used real aviation flight planning tools. And one of those was an app called ForeFlight. Now this is a professional aviation app. I've been using it for many years during international flights and flight planning. And I originally plotted the flight from Cape Town, Africa to Adelaide on ForeFlight, and that gives me the magnetic track and the distance. I was then also able to plot the MPP and the search entry point, and the app then gave me the relevant distances and directions. Now, I did state that the sighting from the aircraft was about 60 to 65 nautical miles to the right of track from a position 863 nautical miles short of Adelaide. And the exact MPP that I produced was south 45 degrees and east 125 degrees. And that was 64 nautical miles from the sighting position. But we'll talk about that a little more. The other thing I did was to produce a real flight plan. Now this is for a Global Express, which has very similar performance to a Gulfstream G650, between Cape Town, Africa and Adelaide, and it was a direct course. You can see FACT direct Adelaide. It's an 11-hour flight in a Global Express, and with full fuel you can actually do that flight quite comfortably. The Great Circle distance is 5,466 nautical miles. If we have a look at the plot, you can see that it goes from Cape Town a lot further south and then approaches towards Australia from the southwest. Now, the MPP was this position here, which you can see is very close to the actual route. So it was a realistic scenario if this aircraft was flying on a direct course from Cape Town to Adelaide, and the missing people were at this location, they were easily within viewing distance for the pilots to see a number of flares. So this is what the route looks like on a Mercator style map. It's a curved line, but to understand flight paths correctly, you need to look at them on a globe, because when viewed on a globe between Cape Town, Africa and Adelaide, Australia, it is a straight line when you're looking straight down on the globe, and that is called a Great Circle track. It's the shortest distance between any 2 points on the Earth, a Great Circle track. So let's take a look at the results. Now, prior to the contest beginning, I had a countdown timer running, so people were prepared and they already had the necessary aircraft performance information. The results. Numerous correct entries were received within an hour. In fact, I was really impressed by that. You know, that was as good as anything you would see in the real world. Granted, it was a simplified exercise, but for somebody to produce those accurate results in such a short time was very impressive to me. Many more correct entries followed. All of these entries were based on a globe. Now, I prepared the contest based on Adelaide. However, I did mention in a previous video that it should be from the closest airport, and Busselton was in fact slightly closer, just by a few miles. Now, in reality, this search would have probably departed from Essendon in Melbourne, which is the aircraft home base, because the range was not critical and there is plenty of performance to get to the search area, conduct the search and get home. So the only fair thing to do was to award more than one prize, and I have awarded 3 prizes. 2 of the contestants have already received their prize, and the third one has asked me to donate it to charity, which I thought was a very nice gesture. The first 2 entries received were based on Adelaide, and they came very quickly after the contest was opened. I also gave a prize to the first correct entry based on Busselton. So the 3 prize winners are the Double D, Ruhif and Kunti. So congratulations guys, they were outstanding, and I will link to your entries in the comments below. So let's take a look at the answers. Now, the contest requirements, we'll go through each of the 10 points and look at how the answers should have been presented. Show the map you have used. I used ForeFlight. Google Earth was a suitable map. State the coordinate system you're using, latitude and longitude. Now, if you were entering based on a flat Earth, you could use whatever flat Earth map works and whatever coordinate system that flat Earth used. However, we didn't receive any entries based on a flat Earth map. State your departure airport. Adelaide was fine, Busselton was fine. The distance to the search entry point, based on the search entry point flight from Adelaide, it was 862 nautical miles. The course to the search entry point from the departure airport, a true direction of 219 degrees. The coordinates of the MPP and the search entry point, the MPP was 45 south, 125 east. The search entry point was 4530 south, 125.42 east. Now, Where's Wally was kind enough to plot many of the received entries on this map, and as you can see, most of the globe entries were within a few miles of the correct position. So that was outstanding, guys. Really well done. There were no entries from flat earthers. The time interval from takeoff to the search entry point, 140 minutes. Bingo fuel value in pounds to land with 45 minutes reserve intact at the flight level 400 burn rate, which was 2,000 pounds per hour. So 45 minutes at 2,000 pounds per hour is 1,500 pounds of fuel. That was your landing reserve. The bingo fuel value was 6,360 pounds. The time available at the search zone from Adelaide, 340 minutes. And the course and distance back to the landing airport, 047 degrees and 865 nautical miles. So let's have a look at the Excel spreadsheet to determine how those figures were calculated. So this is the Excel spreadsheet that I produced for this flight plan, and most of this information you had many days in advance of the contest. So there was plenty of opportunity to prepare this in advance, and the only remaining information needed was the distance to the search entry point from the departure airport and the distance back to the landing airport from the MPP. So these two figures were the only pieces of information we did not have. So using the data I provided, we could calculate in advance the time required for the climb for 0 to 30,000 feet, and then from 30,000 to 40,000 feet. We could also calculate how much time was required for the descent, and that resulted in a fixed distance. Now, with the calculation tools inside Excel, all we had to do was plug in an actual distance to the SEP, and it would automatically calculate for us the distance of the flight in the cruise. So basically that provided us with time, distance and fuel to the search entry point. 140 minutes, 862 miles, 4,851 pounds of fuel burned. once we have the distance from the MPP back to the landing airport, we can use a similar calculation here, and that results in a return of 140 minutes, distance 865 miles, and fuel of 4,860.4. So what we need to do is take the fuel for the transit out and the transit back. We need to add £300 for the taxi, and we need to add the £1,500 for the fixed reserve, and that gives us what I call the total for the transits. So that's how much fuel is required to get out there and to get back with your landing reserve intact, including the taxi fuel. Subtracting that figure from the maximum fuel on board the aircraft provides us with fuel available for the search of 8,488 pounds, and that provides a time of 340 minutes. Calculating bingo fuel is simply adding the fuel required for the return to the 1,500 pounds that you need upon landing. So that's your bingo fuel value. As I said, most of this information was provided in advance. So looking at it on Google Earth, I plotted the search grid. This yellow line is the flight from Cape Town, Africa to Adelaide, Australia. This is the point where the jet made the observation of the flares. This is the most probable position, which was 64 miles from the jet's location. And then calculating the search grid, this is the search entry point. So flying down from Adelaide, we get our distances and our bearings for the contest. So congratulations to the winners, and I'm going to produce another short follow-up, just looking at several entries that are worthy of special mention, but I will link to the 3 winning entries in the comments below. Flat Earthers, what did I say at the beginning? No excuses. Excuses equals fail. You guys did not even try. So what have we learned? Flat Earth can't rescue. Don't go sailing on a flat Earth, because if you get lost, nobody's going to come and find you. Flat Earth failed this challenge, as they have failed every other challenge I have posted. But never fear, because I'm going to produce another contest just like this in 6 months' time to see if Flat Earthers have made any progress on a map, or if they are still going to let people die at sea.